Hi. Welcome to a new recap. Today we will watch Cowboys and Aliens, so hang on tight. Jake awakens in the middle of New Mexico in 1873, completely forgetting who he is or how he got here. He has a cut on his stomach, an unfamiliar woman's photo on the floor, and an odd jewelry on his arm. It is pointless to pull, and it is also worthless to hit with a rock. When three cowboys unexpectedly turn up to ask for directions, they assume Jake is a criminal on the run and attempt to apprehend him. However, Jake swiftly defends himself and kills all of them in a matter of seconds. Jake then makes off with a gun, some cash, and some clothing before riding one of the horses into town with the cowboy's dog. Jake finds the town to be relatively impoverished and that not many people still live there. He goes into what appears to be an empty house to get some water for his wound, but Preacher Meacham finds him and doesn't put down his gun until he understands Jake is amnesic and needs assistance. Meacham brings Jake to his church where he tends to his wound, pointing out that it was nearly cauterized and that the shape is unusual, ruling out a bullet. He adds that this was formerly a mining village, but that as the gold ran out, everyone began to move on. There were gunshots audible outside at that precise moment. It's Percy, a brazen young man who enjoys stirring up problems because his father's cattle business provides the only jobs in this town. The neighborhood bartender, who goes by Doc because of his former occupation, tries to talk to Percy since he's fed up with the child continuing to scare away his customers and drink for free. Maria, the Doc's wife, tries to stop him, but it's too late. Now that Percy is enraged, he moves closer to strike Doc. Meacham interrupts to stop them there, and Percy starts teasing him by asking the community to donate money to make up for Doc's misfortune. Ella observes in fascination as Jake slaps Percy in defiance of her requests for cooperation. When an enraged Percy unintentionally hits a guy with a warning shot, Sheriff Taggart arrives to take him into custody. Working for Percy's father, Nat is a Native American who advises Taggart not to arrest Percy at all. Taggart responds that he has no choice because the moron shot a deputy and needs to be hauled to the federal marshal. In the meantime, three cowboys are tending to the cattle and drinking when all of a sudden, something falls close by and bursts, flooding the surrounding area with bright lights. Only one of the soldiers makes it out alive. He falls into the river to relieve himself and discovers that the land has been completely destroyed. When Taggart returns to the town and places Percy in jail, he discovers a wanted poster using Jake's picture. Speaking of Jake, Ella approaches him in the neighborhood tavern and asks where he found the bracelet. As his grandson Emmett looks out the window, Taggart, accompanied by his thugs, interrupts their talk to seize Jake. Emmett enters the room to stop Jake as he is ready to shoot Taggart, but Jake doesn't give up and beats all the men up. Jake is knocked unconscious at that very moment by Ella's blow to his head, which triggers a flashback in which he finds himself resting next to Alice, the woman in the photo, with an abandoned house, gold coins, a bright light, and several strangely shaped creatures. Upon awakening, he discovers that he is incarcerated and that Percy shares a cell with him. Jake punches the youngster to knock him unconscious since he keeps disturbing him. Because he doesn't believe the brilliant light's explanation, Percy's father Dolarhyde is torturing the lone explosion survivor in order to force him to confess what actually happened to his cows. Nat abruptly interrupts him to tell his boss what happened to Percy and that the notorious Jake is in the area. Dolarhyde then lets one of the horses pull his employee away and gathers his soldiers to head into town. A little while later, Taggart enumerates all the offenses Jake is charged with, including arson, assault, robbery, and killing Alice, as he arrests Jake and takes him to see the marshal. Jake doesn't think the last statement is true because he could tell how much he loved Alice from the little memory he had. Ella seizes the opportunity to approach Percy once more as they are bundled into a car for the transfer, expressing her regret and clarifying that she was unable to let Jake to escape. Since his grandfather is the only family he has, Emmett also opposes his grandfather's departure, but Dolarhyde and his men arrive before the car can leave. Dolarhyde gets into a fight with Taggart to stop him from taking them away because he wants his son back and believes Jake is the thief who took all of his riches. Suddenly, a number of lights appear in the sky, interrupting this. As the lights draw closer, it becomes clear that Jake's bracelet is beeping as well. The alien starships that are assaulting the village cause numerous fires and frighten the horses. Emmett tries to hide beneath one of the buildings as the men draw their weapons to protect themselves, and Taggart chases after him to save him. Ella rushes to save Emmett instead of Taggart since the aliens are also snatching a lot of people and taking Maria and Taggart with them. They are unable to escape, so Jake breaks Percy's finger to release him from the handcuffs as the prisoner car speeds off and crashes into the ground. Jake is able to escape when all of a sudden his bracelet glows and launches an energy beam that breaks the car's door. Dolarhyde must rescue Percy since he is too terrified to flee, but before they can get very far, the aliens kidnap Percy as well. When Jake tries to use the bracelet once more, he shoots down a spacecraft, frightening the other people away. Everyone in the community now thinks this is the work of demons as he and Dolarhyde approach to investigate and discover it to be empty. They head toward a house after hearing a sudden cry, and inside, someone is shooting at a beast that is fleeing in the same direction as the starships. Dolarhyde declares that they will depart in the morning when Nat discovers imprints on the ground and becomes confident he can track the thing. Because of the bracelet, he tries to invite Jake along as well, but Jake simply punches Dolarhyde back before heading out. Jake confronts Ella to get answers when he wakes up the following morning and finds she is following him. Jake declines and takes off when Ella reveals that the aliens have taken her folks too and that she has been searching for them for a long time. After discovering the mansion he had seen in his vision, he has a flashback in which he sees himself approaching Alice and kissing her. He also brought a handful of gold coins, which Alice didn't appreciate because they were filthy money. A light melted the gold coins through the roof to take them away, ending their fight. Alice was also taken by the brilliant light, and Jake saw that she was attached to an odd device. As Dolarhyde prepares his soldiers for battle in town, Doc, Ella, Emmett, and the dog accompany them. Following several hours of riding, Jake finds them and decides to aid them since he still wants to find Alice. There isn't a river close by, so when night falls, the gang is taken aback to see a massive boat upside down in the middle of the desert. They choose to stay indoors for the night because of the heavy rain. Nat questions if they ought to have called in the army, but Dolarhyde declines, bitterly recalling his time as a colonel. Nat remarks that he enjoyed listening to Dolarhyde tell Percy the tales of all the men he lost in battle. Because those stories were intended just for his son, Dolarhyde becomes enraged by this and reprimands Nat, sending him to stand guard. Emmett is fascinated by the entire conversation and wants to know more about Dolarhyde's knife, so the colonel gives it to him so he may defend himself. In the meantime, Jake searches for a clean water source to clean his wound while Doc seizes the opportunity to finally learn how to shoot a gun from Meacham. When Ella discovers him and tells him it's crucial that he remember, Jake's bracelet abruptly starts beeping once more and a number of rats start to flee. As it turns out, the alien is here, and it murders several guys by emerging from the dark. When Emmett goes to investigate after hearing the dog bark, the extraterrestrial also finds him. Meacham appears and tries to shoot the creature to save the boy when Emmett drops the knife unintentionally out of terror and it unveils a set of extra limbs to grasp him. Until Jake arrives, the alien strikes him and the gunshot has no effect. Jake fires with the bracelet as it reacts, forcing the alien to flee as his bullets fail to affect any sort of result. Jake then goes to see how Meacham is doing, but sadly, the preacher passes away in his arms. By daybreak, Dolarhyde is down to only a handful of soldiers, and Emmett is unable to locate the dog. Before continuing to follow the alien with Jake and Doc burying Meacham and saying a few words, Dolarhyde tells Emmett the tale of his first kill so that the youngster won't hesitate the next time. A few hours later, Nat discovers additional footsteps heading toward the canyon. The group tries to go quickly, but a cowboy gang ambushes them in the middle of the road. To everyone's amazement, this gang puts down their weapons when they identify Jake as their former boss. It turns out that these men assisted Jake in stealing the gold. Pretending to remember them, Jake gives them the order to return to the camp, where Dolan has assumed command. When Jake tries to command his former group to follow him, Dolan intervenes, telling him that they are upset with him for leaving them to take the gold to a woman. The bracelet beeps, interrupting the group as they take Jake's gun and begin to beat him until he confesses where the gold is. With its help, Jake kills Dolan and causes the others to drop their weapons, allowing the group to flee. The aliens discover them as they return to an open location and open fire from their starships, prompting the gang to start running after them. When Ella is taken hostage by one of these ships, Jake rides after it on his horse until he gets near enough to get aboard and blast it with the bracelet, sending it tumbling into a river. The alien pilot attacks Jake and Ella as they emerge from the water, injuring Ella before Jake uses the bracelet to destroy it. Despite Ella's severe wound, Jake holds her in his arms and covers it with a portion of her clothing until he locates the others. Doc examines Ella, but he finds that it's too late, she has passed away. Before Jake has time to realize what has happened, a gang of Chiricahua Apaches surrounds the group, seizing Jake and taking him back to their tribe. Ella's body is thrown into the fire by an Apache warrior as Chief Black Knife approaches the party and, with Nat's translation, explains that they believe the cowboys brought the aliens to this region. After a disagreement, the campfire unexpectedly catches light and Ella exits, expressing her regret for lying to everyone, She took on this appearance as a disguise, and it turned out that she is also extraterrestrial. It just took some time for it to recover. Although Ella is from a different planet than the aliens who visited Earth, they had also slain her people. Since gold is uncommon for them as well, these aliens are searching for it. They abducted these people in order to study human vulnerability. If they send this information back to their home planet, an entire army will return. This is why the people they abducted are still alive. Ella notes that Black Knife is prepared to lead his troops in combat against the aliens and that, should Jake be able to recall their location, they can locate them. In an effort to assist him, the Apaches create an unusual potion that triggers his memory, leading Jake to eventually recall that he and Alice had visited the aliens' operating room. The thing used a surgical instrument to inflict that unusual wound on Jake after first testing on Alice and killing her. Jake used that weapon to fight back, and as he attempted to get off the operating table, he inadvertently touched the bracelet the alien had left there, which caused it to adhere to his wrist. Jake later discovered that the structure he had fled from was the alien mothership, which was linked to a network of caverns within the canyon. When the gang returns to the region riding horses the following morning, Ella tells them that the aliens are hidden within the mothership, which is currently mining for gold. They should use the caves to save their people because the smaller starships frequently fly by and enter the top of the structure. Black Knife, who has his own fighting techniques and doesn't want his people to be led by a white man, gets into a confrontation with Dolarhyde over his plan to get the aliens out of the way so Jake can enter covertly. Jake goes out in the meantime to search for his group, who are already fighting over how to divide the little gold they have in addition to the dog. Although they wish to go, Jake reminds them that the aliens will eventually locate them and challenges them to a battle to reclaim all of the gold from the aliens. Back in the canyon, Nat is telling Black Knife about Dolarhyde's kindness and how he gave him purpose and saved him throughout the war, a revelation that a shocked Dolarhyde finds incredibly moving. With these few men pursuing Dolarhyde, Black Knife doesn't think he can be a decent warrior. However, just then, Jake and his entire gang arrive, and everyone ultimately decides to cooperate. Because he's still seen as a good Apache, Nat is permitted to sit with the tribe during the night as they prepare for their plan. Ella seizes the opportunity to inform Jake that she won't be staying long, and he responds by kissing her. The group hides the following morning while Jake and a handful of his men scale the mothership and set off a number of explosives before descending again. The aliens emerge as a result of the plan's successful explosion, and the crew begins fire on them. While Jake and Ella enter the cave and Doc goes about tending to any injured men, Emmett and the dog are on watch duty. A pitched battle breaks out between humans and aliens, resulting in deaths on both sides and Dolarhyde being knocked off his horse. Nat arrives to save his employer from an alien that is about to kill him. He uses some rope to capture the alien, but the alien is stronger than Nat and pulls him to the ground so he can attack him. Dolarhyde attempts a couple ineffective shots to attract the alien's attention, but happily Doc hits a weak point in the creature's head, causing it to explode. Before Nat passes away in his arms, Dolarhyde checks on him and tells him he's the kind of son he's always wanted. Jake and Ella discover the mining equipment in the cave first, and as they venture farther down the tunnels, they discover that every victim who has been abducted is linked to a brilliant light. Jake is also attempted to be hypnotized by this light, but Ella shoots it down, causing everyone to eventually wake up. Ella is disconnecting the victims while Jake pursues a disturbance down the tunnel and discovers a group of aliens. He uses the bracelet to shoot them all, but more are on their way. Jake takes up position in front of the tunnel that leads from the mothership to the cave, firing at the approaching aliens as Ella leads the captives out. Jake follows Ella as she ventures farther into the cave rather than exiting as well. Additional aliens emerge from the mothership as well, and one of them pursues Emmett. Emmett initially tries to hide, but as the alien approaches, he finds the courage to stab it. Jake returns to the caves and finds Ella has traveled all the way to the mothership's base in order to blow it up using the bracelet. Jake is unable to remove it, so Ella gives him a kiss to divert his attention and cause the bracelet to fall. Ella then scales the mothership's core and asks Jake to hand her the bracelet. However, she doesn't stop there. Rather, she carries it further inside the ship, demonstrating her willingness to abandon this world in order to save it. Jake wants to pursue her, but when additional aliens appear, he is forced to flee into a different chamber in order to stay safe. When Dolarhyde discovers that Jake and Ella aren't with them, he too heads into the caves. Outside, Emmett witnesses all the victims exiting the cave and declares the situation. Unexpectedly, an alien reaches out to grasp Jake in the tunnels and tries to return him to the operating table. Jake has the opportunity to fire at a pot of melting gold that falls on the alien and kills it when Dolarhyde appears just as the operation is about to begin and distracts it with a few rounds. The mothership launches its departure from the planet as the aliens are losing. An alien tries to stop Ella as Jake and Dolarhyde emerge from the tunnels, but Ella activates the bracelet and causes the ship to explode as soon as it leaves the ground. The gang seizes the opportunity to reunite with their loved ones now that their rivals have vanished. Emmett and Taggart get back together, Doc sees Maria once again, and Dolarhyde sees Percy set free at last. Later on, Jake takes a ride to the old house to give Alice flowers as a memento. Then he heads back to the town, which is thriving once more because of all the gold the aliens gave them and will shortly have its own train. Now that Percy acts appropriately and even pays his share, Dolarhyde chooses to enlist him as a business partner. Jake's return surprises both Dolarhyde and Taggart, the dog's adoptive owner. When he reveals that he is a wanted criminal, the men tell him he can leave in peace because they would fabricate a story to imply that Jake the thief perished in the caves. After shaking hands with Dolarhyde, eager to begin a new life, Jake permanently departs from the village. Subscribe for more movies.